Some images have too much contrast to be captured correctly in one exposure. Let's take a look at the numbers in this photograph. In the highlights, we can see that we are about 242, which is the correct place for us to be for highlight with detail. But on the shadow side, we can see we're very far below 20, and in some cases as low as 10 in the deep shadows. The trick of digital photography is to capture correct detail in the highlights and then process for good shadow detail. It is much easier to bring up the shadow detail than to bring back highlight detail. We're going to use a luminous contrast mask to do this. We're going to isolate the shadow area away from the midtones and highlights. Before we do this, I want to make a quick change to one of the preferences in Photoshop. I'm going to double click the quick mask icon to bring up the quick mask options. By default, color indicates masked areas. I'm going to go ahead and change it to selected areas and change the opacity to 100%. Now this allows me to say that when I see a color, it is the selected area, and when the density is full, it is fully selected. I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command Option tilde, which is Control Alt tilde on the PC. This has applied a selection to the image that says the brighter the pixel, the more it's selected. The darker the pixel, the less it's selected. I'm now going to hit the Q key to bring up the quick mask, and I can see that all the red areas is indicating these are the areas that are selected, the areas that are in color. The areas that are not in color are the areas that are freed up from the selection. Now, what I really want is the opposite of this, because I've already got the correct exposure on the highlights. I want to bring up the shadow areas. I'm going to use the keyboard command Command-I, Control-I in the PC to invert the quick mask to its opposite position. I'm now going to go ahead and bring up my levels dialog box. This is Command-L on the Mac, Control-L on the PC. You can see by moving the sliders, I can control just how much of the area I'm selecting. I can actually go in and just grab the grooves between the sole of the shoe, or I can grab as much of that as I want. Obviously, I'm grabbing some areas that I don't want, which is on the side of the shoe right here. So I'm going to very carefully select as close as I can to grab as much of the bottom of the shoe as possible. I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab a paintbrush, and I want to go ahead and paint with white, and wherever I paint with white, I'm now removing that quick mask. These are the areas that I don't want to correct. As I go around and paint, you can see I'm removing the red from the photograph. This area on the top of the shoe is really correctly exposed, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And now I'm going to go ahead and remove the area of the black border. I'm going to go ahead and click, and then I'm going to hold my Shift key, which will draw a straight line on all four corners. And that removes basically all the areas that I don't want to correct. I'll move in a little closer down here to the bottom of the shoe, and I'll paint away some of the areas of the shadow that I don't want to open up. I'll use a little smaller brush. By using my bracket key, I can make a smaller brush and correctly paint down to the deep areas of the shoe. I can see an area here that I did miss, so I'm going to go ahead and paint that off. I'll do a Command-0 to bring me back to full size. I'm now going to hit the Q key to bring me out of quick mask. I'm going to do Command-H to hide the dancing ants. That's Control-H on the PC. Now, Command-L will bring up levels. And you can see on the histogram that I'm only grabbed the very, very darkest part of the shot. As I move the sliders down, I'm brightening up the sole of that shot, and I can actually change the contrast in there. And as I turn the preview on and off, you can see I'm really, really opening up that shoe and bringing up the detail in there. That's one way of working with it. Another way to deal with that would be to make a layer out of that selection. I'll do a Command-J, this is Control-J in the PC, to turn that into its own layer. I'll turn off the bottom layer. And you can see I just have a layer that is just the sole of that shoe. Now I can change that blend mode to screen, which is automatically going to brighten it up. Now while it's in the screen mode, I'll do a Command-L, and I'll go ahead and start to brighten it up. And I'm going to go ahead and change the contrast on both ends. I'm going to darken it a little bit, change the midtones, and I'll look at that preview, and I can see that I've really brightened up that shoe. I'm going to go ahead and add a little more brightness to it. And hit OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and change that back to normal. You can see I'll turn that on and off once. You can see that we've really opened up that shoe quite a lot in there. I now have the information. If I turn on and look at the numbers, I brought the information up into the 40s, which is plenty of shadow detail, while at the same time I've kept the highlight and the in-between shadows and background are all still the same numbers they've always been. But I need to do one more step in this photograph. I need to make the background pure white. The art director who wants to put this into a page layout program does not want to have a gray background. They want to have a pure white background, but they would like to have the real shadow. To do this, I'm going to create a path around the image. I'm going to go ahead and blow the image up by zooming in on the top of the shot. I'm going to grab my pen tool. I'm going to check my preferences that I'm in my pen tool, and then I'm on the first box, which is my outside line. I've got it set for a rubber band so that I can see the lines as I'm drawing, and I have the auto add and delete button checked. I'm going to go ahead and start by just making a single click at the top of the shot, and as I come around the curve, I click and pull. Click and pull with the mouse, and I'm pulling in the direction of where I'm going, which sets me up for the next dot on the line. I'm going around this. It just takes a little practice, but you really have to master the pen tool in order to make really good selections. This works much better than some of the, say, the lasso tool, which if I stop in the middle, I would lose a selection. This case, when I'm in this tool, I could actually switch to another tool, do something, go right back to the pen tool, and I can continue on the path along the side of the shoe. Click and pull. As I come around the curve, I find a space on the bottom end of the curve, and I click and pull. If I need to, I can hold my command key, control on the PC, and change position of any of those points I need. I can option click on the handle and move either one side. I'm going to just click and pull around the edge of the shot. Click, pull, and going around these curves, I can outline the entire shoe. If I need to move to the next position, I hold the space bar and move the image up. Click and pull. Click and pull. If I get to a larger curve area, I can click and pull down. The least amount of points makes a smoother path. Let's go ahead and move to the end of the path till we have it completed. Now that the path is completed, we're going to turn the path into a selection by holding down the command key, that's control on the PC, and we'll double click on the path. This turns it into a selection. The selection is too sharp for a photograph. If I hit the Q key, I can bring up the quick mask again. I'll use my hand tool to move it over in the center. What I need to do is make an aliased edge. This is too sharp of a transition. So I'm going to go Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm just going to type in 0.3, 3/10 of a pixel. If I do the preview button, you can see it's just a very, very slight. I'm going to move in a little closer here, and you can see as I'm doing the preview, I'm having just a very, very slight transitional edge. This gives our selection a much more realistic transition. Command 0 will bring me back to full size. Now I'm going to hit the Q key to get out of the quick mask mode, and I do have a selection around the shot. I'm going to do a Command Shift I so that the selection is around the outer edge of the shot. If I hit the Q key again, you can see the red area indicates the outer area of the shot. Now I'm going to make a new snapshot. I'm going to go to the history palette, and I'm going to make a snapshot of this image that's already had the sole corrected. I'm going to click on the icon to make that the active snapshot I'm going to paint from. Now, I want to now go ahead and fill the outer area with white. I'm going to switch my background colors. I'm going to do Option Delete to fill with white. Now, I need to paint back the original shadow. I'm going to go to my history brush, and I'm going to be painting from this snapshot, which I've already indicated by clicking here, and I'm going to go ahead and change. I'll hit my 5 key to make my opacity 50%, bring my brush up a little bit bigger with the bracket key. As I paint now with the history brush, I'm bringing back the original shadow in just the areas I want, leaving this area completely clean. If we take a look at our final numbers, we can see now we've got our white with detail. I'm going to do a Command H to hide the dancing ants. I can see here that we have the correct white with detail and the correct shadow detail, but now we have a pure 255 white background, which is what the art director really wants. That way, when they put this on their page layout program, They don't have any edges to the photograph, and they can lay this into a pure white page without having to go back in and utilize the path as a clipping path. This is a much cleaner way to have what I call the perfect silhouette. This is just one of the ways that we can actually make the perfect exposure. In some of the other lessons coming up, we're going to use light painting and some other techniques to bring lights and dark exposures together to make perfect exposures every time.